everyone, and welcome back to the Game Emporium, where some friends have gathered around the table to talk about some board games for the first time in 2025, because, oh boy, has it been a while since we talked about board games on the channel.
Hell yeah.
As you can see, my name is Nick, that is Ross, has joined me today,
Oh yeah.
and we're going to be talking about some of the best games that we played in January. We're going to try and do a little bit of a format change for the board games so that we can talk about them a little bit more frequently. We've got some videos will be coming up in the next few months, which are just going to be me. They're going to be some which me and Ross, where we're talking about this sort of thing. We're talking about the games we played in the previous month. We're going to have some slight differences in stuff that's happening and availability to be able to play games, as is demonstrated by this month alone. Ross played a lot more than I did because he got to go to a convention. The last week or so, I was in France, which meant the games I was playing were party games more than anything else because I was skiing with my family, and there's not very many opportunities to bring out, something like Barcelona with my family. So, kind of making do. And Ross is going to be going through some new life stuff that is happening throughout.
Literally new life, yeah.
throughout March and onwards. So that's going to have to just be a thing we deal with. So it might be he's going to have a couple of episodes where he's like, didn't play anything.
I have one game to bring to the party or something like that. Yeah,
we will have BG. We'll still have
or
BGA.
maybe it's a bunch of solo potentially. Yeah, it's BGA
Yeah.
and it's potentially solo gaming as well. I'm trying to, I don't know, prep up for that a little bit. So yeah. To look over at War Story, which is currently sat on my table.
Ooh, interesting. I want to give that a go because I've heard good things. So we're going to talk about some of the games that we have played in January. So Ross had a bit of advantage because he went to HandyCon this last month. And slight disclaimer for the next 3 games we're going to hear about. We're not probably going to sound as excited as we normally would do as for the late games later on, because we already have talked about these games between us because of tech issues. So forgive that. We're going to try and impart as much energy as we normally would do.
Hey, we could do our best acting. We could be like, oh, no, you picked this game?
Tell me, Ross, tell me about your first game that I don't know.
My first game. So you definitely don't know. So obviously you mentioned HandyCon, and I was really fortunate at HandyCon to got a chance to play a preview copy of Sweetlands. I know, right? Kickstarter game, which is hopefully going to come out later this year. I'm going to attempt the publisher's name because they're going to come up again. It's Yuchi Bakoya? You probably would have a better shot at pronouncing this than I would.
Are they Japanese by any chance?
They are Japanese, yeah.
Oh, I'm going to look it up, and you carry on. Tell us about the game whilst I try and find out who these are.
So Sweetlands, super cute artwork. You're essentially building, multiple cities on this map with these really cute buildings which look like ice cream cones and brownies and little milk jugs. So on one side you have your city board or map, I guess, where you're building out all these buildings and creating cities on them and linking them with some tiles and some roads. And then on the other side of your board you have a bunch of tracks that you're moving down to sort of score points and to do some other bits. And on your turn, really you're doing action selection, but you're not just selecting action, you have to discard a card from your hand when you do that, and if you follow someone else in that space, then you have to pay 2 cards, and the next person has to pay 3 cards. But those cards that you have, you also could be spending to do an action, basically. And there's a whole other bunch of stuff. You can tuck them, depending on which cards you play, they might empower future cards. There's loads of stuff in there. We can really kind of get a good engine going. But yeah, it's a very cute, nice artwork game, deceptively hiding a very thinky game behind it. One of the really good bits really around it is obviously there's always something you can do because you don't get locked out on a space necessarily, because you could be playing a card. I'm really looking forward to doing it. I think there's only 1 or 2 minor annoyances in it, which I'm sure are probably part of the pre-promo copy, basically, right? So I'm hyped, very hyped for it to arrive later this year. I think you'll enjoy it.
Yeah, I like the sound of everything that you're telling me. So, and I've got a little bit of fondness for Japanese designers of Uchibakoya or Koya, depending on how you, I guess, the emphasis.
and I think it's one you could sneak in someone like Laura, for example, where you could be like, play the stealth heavy game with her, because you could be like, hey, look how cute this little ice cream clock tower is that you get to play on your board, basically. So
you say that. Laura's still pretty happy to play heavier games. Like, we've played Barcelona and Windmill Valley, and those are heavier weighted games.
Yeah, I'm thinking more like Lacerda level, I guess. Really.
I see. That's a challenge.
It's a 4 out of a 5 on BGG. So not to say she wouldn't. It's just maybe an easier sell, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what is an easier sell on my side of it is the first game that's on my list, which is a game I played with Laura, her sister, and her mother when we just had a random game day in the middle of January, because I think it was post-Christmas, get together sort of thing. This is Merdle. So Merdle is one of those logic puzzle games. It's the Merdle board game is based off of the logic puzzle games that you probably see in newspapers, that sort of thing, where you've got a list of people, a list of locations, a list of items, that sort of thing. You have to try and deduce, okay, this person is here, therefore they're not anywhere else, therefore no one else can be here, and this item is also here, so that means that this person had this item, they were there, so we can kind of deduce it based on that assumption. And my aunt bought me the book, which we've got on our coffee table, and we quite enjoy doing those puzzles from time to time, a couple of years ago, and the board game is... It's just very much like that. You have a bunch of cards that are shuffled together, dealt into these little envelopes, which is location, item, person, and whether they are guilty or not. And you just slot them in. Everyone picks up an envelope at the start of it. They look at 2 bits of information. They find out whether they've got who the person, the location, and the object, and where they fit in. And then you have to basically go around doing different actions to find out more information on it. So it's kind of like Cluedo, only there's no chance on the dice rolling. It's all purely logic based and making those different assumptions based on the information that you know. And it was a gift from our editor and producer at Bucket List Board Games, which is my podcast. If you haven't heard that, go check it out. And really enjoyed it. It's a fun little replayable game. It's not too heavy. It's pretty straightforward. It doesn't even have a wait listing on Board Game Geek. Because it's the sort of thing that you would be like, oh, this is a mass market kind of game. So there's no... Who is the publisher on this? Endless Games.
In a pivot to our previous conversation, it almost sounds like as well like it's the more, because you got 221B Baker Street,
yes,
the board game, which is a bit sounds like also like Clue or Cluedo-esque, right? But this sounds like this is maybe a more of a step towards the logic bit, I guess, really. Rather than
it is.
It's moving around the board bit, right?
Yeah, a little bit. And it's probably that sort of mashup with Paint the Roses, which is one that you described earlier. Where you put down a bit of information and then you go, okay, well, this hasn't resolved, so it could be this or this. And you just kind of go through it. It's the same sort of things as on the score sheets that you have for... deducing that information on Paint the Roses.
Yes, yeah.
So it's that same sort of thing. So yeah, really enjoy it actually. It's a nice little game. It's not one of the things that will come out every time, but it's a good little one to do with the family. And just interesting information. Yeah, that's it.
Cool. Nice. Okay, I've got another one from the same publisher. So sort of as it's funny as well because I'd seen this game previously when it was originally being kind of up for Kickstarter, and I'm like, this looks like my sort. It just looks fun. It just looked good. But a bit like, I think at that point I was a bit like, I need to stop just dumping hundreds of pounds into board games and probably be a little bit more sensible. So I didn't do anything with it. But it's come back round, and because it was the same publisher as Sweetlands, I went, well, let me go have a look at this other game. So I played it on TTS, but it was really good. So this is Ostia. So this is you are a Roman merchant, I think is the kind of backstory on it.
Sure.
But essentially you're selling some goods, you're trying to create ships, you're trying to build buildings. And the way you're doing this is there's a rondel action section, so you pick all your ships up, you move them around 6 action spaces, you drop one ship off as you go, and then wherever you land, you will get to take the action. Wherever you pulled your ships up from, you'll get some resources. And so there's this really nice balance of being like, well, I need to get wood, so I need to pull the ships off here and move them around. Can I move them around in a position where I can then land on like the ship space, so then I can build ships, for example, and that'd be like a perfect kind of turn.
Yeah.
Or do I need to store them for a little bit later and trying to plan to make sure I have ships available here to take that action, essentially. There's a map that you sail across where you can then place those buildings. There is a score system similar to, in this one in particular, to Scythe, where you're moving up a kind of favour track, and then depending on how high up that track you are, depends on how much your goods, ships and buildings are worth, basically, for victory points. As we covered off a minute ago, prior technical stuff, it's not dissimilar as well. I think they've made it better in Sweetlands, because Sweetlands, there's different tracks for scoring, but you can be very specific about the track that you want to go down to score on.
Yeah.
So you move down your marker on this one. This one's much closer to Scythe, which is you move up and then you kind of score good based on those other things. But sometimes it's good because you've got to make the trade-off. Do I do the thing to get the building, or do I do the thing to like push myself up here? When we played it wrong for a little bit because we misinterpreted an action, and it was much stronger afterwards, and the game flowed much better after that. But yeah, really good game. I'm really looking forward to playing it again on TTS at some point, but particularly I've added it to my pledge now, so hopefully it'll be delivered at the end of this year. And I think the original Kickstarter's just delivered literally last month, very recently, because I've seen a couple of people posting about it. I think it's number 1 now on BGG Hotness at the moment.
It
something
is,
like that.
yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. Oh, there's an expansion and everything which gets added in, adds pirates you got to fight. So there's quite a lot of it's one of those flexibility in the setup at the beginning, and then so every time it's same actions but different goals potentially.
Sure.
So there's a little bit of replayability in that as well, which is pretty good.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Good fun.
I think you'll like it because it's not really, but kind of Five Tribes-esque in that kind of pick up and drop off as you go. So I think you'll like it for that sort of.
Well, I mean, it's interesting you say that, because one of my next picks was Five Tribes.
What a and that we didn't know, so that was a beautiful segue.
That was a handy little segue. So yeah, Five Tribes, it's, as Ross says, it is a Mancala game where you are the elders of 5 tribes. You're basically picking up a bunch of meeples, you're dropping them down onto these different tiles. Wherever you end up, as long as you have to make sure that one of the meeples that you drop onto that tile matches a meeple of that colour. And then you pick up all of those meeples and you do the action that's associated with the meeple and with the tile that is on that location, whatever that tile action is. It could be buy resources, get a gin, drop a palm tree on something, who knows. And then you're going to be just working your way around until you get to a point where there's no workers left. You're trying to get as much money as you can, so money is your points, but you have to spend the points in order to bid your location, bid your placement in the turn order, which in a 2-player game is really interesting because you have basically 2 choices in a round you have to bid for. I really like 5 Tribes. You bought me the expansions for my Christmas present, which I'm really grateful for, and I have now completed the obligation that you also got for me, which was buying the folded space inserts so I can put them all into one box.
Good. Yeah, lovely.
So that's something I need to get around to playing at some point. I'm really looking forward to that one.
It's funny because 5 Tribes was so nearly on my list of games that I wanted to mention today, so I'm glad that you brought it up, because we've obviously played a couple of BGA rounds, and it's really enjoyable. I think there's it's definitely playing it physically, you can kind of see the board state a little bit easier,
absolutely.
and it's much more tactile game where you can you're picking up the meeples and moving them around and stuff. So really enjoying that one at the moment.
Yeah, it's a good little game, and I think the expansions add in, aside from anything else, a 6th tribe and some other add-on bits which are quite fun to play in. So I'm looking forward to getting those to the table. And just more 5 Tribes. It's one of those games that I think we've talked about before, where you play it and you go, oh yeah, that's a great game, and then you kind of forget about it. Not for anything bad, but because you go off and play other games.
Yeah,
but it's still really great, and there's no reason why you should forget.
It's not more popular.
Well, you say that
Really,
it's number 85 on Board Game Geek.
Oh, okay. Maybe it is then.
So it's like it's pretty
Like I say,
highly
maybe-
ranked,
yeah.
and it's the I think it's the only other I say the only other one.
Okay.
It's the
I guess maybe what I mean is I'm surprised it's not more more universal, like something like Ticket to Ride is, or something along those lines. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you go into like a Waterstones and you'd see it.
Yeah, that's fair. I think
yeah,
it's
I'm
because
surprised it's not-
it's one of those weird ones. I think it's because it hasn't been especially well supported lately. It had the 3 expansions
Yeah.
that came out, but there hasn't really been that much to it since, I'm going to say 2018, maybe. Whereas Ticket to Ride, they're pumping out maps for that wherever they go. And for something like Heat, which the other one that Days of Wonder are doing, it's like those are their big 3 now. They are able to just put out maps and expansions for that one. So whether Five Tribes will stick around in the top 100 for a long time, I don't know. I hope so, because it's really good.
Yeah.
It's one of those that's just like, yeah, we should play this more.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Do you want to hear about my other one?
Go on.
So this is a BGA only one. I've not had a chance to play. I have tried to hunt down a copy of potentially. I don't think this one landed that well with you. I think we played it. I'm pretty sure we played this. It's Fromage.
Yeah. Yeah, I've played that a couple of
So-
times, and yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not sold.
Talking of sort of Rondales and I don't know, more like Lazy Susan, I guess actually. Fromage is a game all about cheese. So you have a player board in front of you. You have 3 different types of cheese. Heck, if I can remember what they are: the blue cheese, the white cheese, and the green cheese.
Soft, hard, and
all you
blue,
need to
I
know.
think, are the main.
I think that is right. Yeah. And then you essentially place your cheese wedge to score some points on the main board, or you might be able to place it on your board to like activate one of your buildings to get something basically. But depending on the benefit that you get from where you place your cheese, will depend on whether you're positioning your cheese to pointing it towards yourself, pointing it to your right, pointing it in front of you, or pointing it to your left. Because what will happen is when that cheese segment triangle is pointing back at you as a player, you will collect that type of cheese back off the board again. So you might place a cheese wheel pointing, I don't know, left or right. The wheel will turn, and then it will come back around. It will be pointing, and you go, I'll collect that cheese bit back off me again because it's come back around to me, and now I can do another action with that cheese. So you only have 3 actions you can do.
Yeah.
Workers. And so you're trying to calculate, well, if I put this down here to collect some berries that I can add to my cheese to make it a bit fruity, well, I need to make sure that that cheese wedge is available to actually use the berries to make the other cheese. So I need to make sure it's pointing in a particular way so that when the board rotates, I collect that wedge back that I can then use it again. The worst case scenario is obviously where you've used them all, and then as the wheel turns, the big central wheel turns to you, you have no wedges pointing towards you and you get no benefit basically. And the main board's separated into 4 sections, and so there's like kind of 4 ways you can score. They're all relatively simple to understand. You're trying to make like a chain of cheeses of your colour. You're trying to like make pairs. You're trying to do like a kind of area control game in there. I'm trying to remember what the last one is now. The last one is something. There's different shelves, and you're trying to put cheese on different shelves, basically. So you're trying to do different stuff, basically.
Sure.
Not the same thing over and over again. But I'm really enjoying it. I think it's even better because you can play with a slightly more advanced thing where you have different buildings that you draft at the beginning, so you can create a bit more of a strategy off the beginning of the game rather than kind of having your hand kind of dealt at random to you a little bit. But yeah, good. Yeah, simple-ish game. Good kind of theme behind it. I think you could catch a couple of cheese lovers on that. Really, yeah, quite enjoyable. I want to play it physically.
Yeah, I think I need to play it physically because I was playing it with you on BGA and I was just kind of going, Like I get it. I understand. I kind of understand what was going on. I kind of didn't in some aspects. I think it sort of clicked part way through. That's probably my thing of playing games on Board Game Arena. I don't find them as easy to learn. So it doesn't quite make as much sense as if I'm actually physically putting a cheese out and going, okay, this is what it's doing and this is how it's relating to these different actions. So I'd play it again physically. I'm not in a huge hurry to do it, although I do hear that there's a Formaggio is coming out, which is
Yes,
the
there is.
Italian cheeses. I've absolutely no idea what changes between that and the French cheeses. I don't know whether this is now going to be a
I can't remember.
cheeses of Europe kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd give it a go physically. I'm not. It's not one that I'm rushing to get myself.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Similarly, actually, this next game that I'm going to talk about is not one that I'm going to rush to get myself, but I don't need to because my sister-in-law has it. This one's another kind of memory game. It's a memory game, effectively, where you are placing out different tiles, creating a story to help you remember where each of these things are. So in this instance, it is Wilmot's Warehouse. So this is based off of the video game of the same name, where you are basically putting these different items into a warehouse and you're trying to tell a story where you're trying to keep track of it. And each day there are specific restrictions on what you can do in terms of placing the items into the warehouse. So, for example, we had in our game, you are only allowed to use one word to describe a thing. And you can only use one word. Everyone else can only use one word, but they have to be different words. So you're just going, okay, so we're putting this out. And the way we were describing our story was we had, okay, well, this is Noah's Ark, effectively. The first thing was a boat. Then we had a man, which is like, okay, well, this is Noah. And then it had, the next thing was like a light that was shining down it. And went, oh, okay, that's God's light. That's shining down onto Noah. So that goes above Noah. And then we had a whole bunch of animals who went, okay, the animals go down below decks and we can put them out in alphabetical order, which was coincidence more than anything else. We were able to put them. Yeah. We happened to be able to put them in alphabetical order because of you have to place them adjacent to each other. That's the first half of the game. The second half of the game is you then go, okay, this is the story we have now made up. This is what we're trying to remember. These are the ridiculous rules we've had as we're putting things out. We then get 5 minutes to flip over the customer cards that we have in our as a collective pile, and we have to try and match them with the 35 face-down tiles we now have in front of us, which have got the different items on them. So we have to sort of shuffle through a hand of cards and go, okay, well, let's see if we can find Noah. Noah is here. We put Noah onto this square here. We've got the Ark. The Ark is here. We have to do so on and so forth. We have to try and cooperatively put it together and see if we can do it in 5 minutes. It's another one that's just simple, silly fun, kind of like Myrtle. It's just it's not a game about the game. It's a game about the story that game produces. Because we'll still we'll just go, Noah, and the sort of God's light of Noah and all that sort of thing about it. Which we're not a religious family. It's just that made sense in the story.
It's the things that come off the back of it, right? The in jokes almost.
Yeah, exactly.
Play as well. Something will happen, and you kind of create your own little
Noah
system within it, right?
Yeah. So just a fun little game. Not one that I'll play a lot, but it was a Christmas gift to my sister-in-law from her husband, and we all enjoyed it. So it's good fun.
I think that's the probably the key difference as well between yours and my Jan plays is because I got to go to a con, I got slightly heavier games out, but because most of yours was like post-Christmas related,
yes,
it will be the more like party realm, right?
Oh, don't worry, I've got 2 more heavy games or heavier games.
Oh, okay, nice, good, okay. Formaggio, by the way, is a standalone expansion, so you can mix and match the games together.
So much cheese.
They add different boards in the centre, but basically it's just different like scoring stuff. So I think it adds a little bit more flexibility to the game, or a little bit more randomness on setup.
Sure.
There you go. Just to wrap up that previous thing. Right, do you want to hear about a classic Ross game, or do you want to hear about a game which is much lighter, but I don't think you're a big fan of necessarily, but I've kind of come round to.
Let's start with the lighter game and then let's build up the big Ross game at the end of it.
Sure. So the slightly later game is Castle Combo. So I've been playing this quite a lot on BGA. I'm in a tournament at the moment for it, so that's kind of why. And it has grown on me a little bit. I think there are some slightly stronger strategies in there. Mm-hmm. But I'm quite enjoying the simplicity of it a little bit. I've put it in that same sort of like space where I'm like, if I want to play a slightly lighter game, I might pick that, or like I don't know, sea salt paper, something like that. So, so basically you have 2 rows of markets, basically of cards. They normally have some sort of symbols in the top right corner of them, these shields with different colours, and then they have like an ability at the bottom which will give you keys or coins or a combination of the both, and typically some victory points of some sort, depending on where you place them. So then you're building out a tableau in front of you. You take a card, you put it in front of you, and then hopefully you put it in the right location to satisfy some scoring. So it might be put purple shields to the left and right of this card. It might be put this card in the bottom, middle, or top row, or anything along those lines, basically.
Mm-hmm.
You could have a little bit more flexibility in that because there's a messenger, I think he's called, which moves between the two markets. Depending where the messenger is that's the row you can select from. So there's 3 cards available. And when you take a card, you move it up. But you can pay keys to move the messenger. You can pay keys to like cycle the cards so you can see it. So there's there's a little bit more. It's a game where it could fall into a trap that you're kind of like forced to just pick cards, and then you can't really ever pick a nice strategy, and you can't really go in a certain direction. So there's a couple of cards which will be like score 10 points if you have no purples in your thing.
Okay.
So you're actively trying to avoid purples, or it might be score. There's a particular one which I quite enjoy playing, which is you can basically put like coins on cards, and they combo quite well because it will normally say store coins on this card, and then also add coins to all of your other cards that store coins.
Okay.
So you play quite a few of those, and you score a lot of points at the end of the game, basically. So yeah, I'm quite like I say, I wasn't sure on it to start with. I've kind of just warmed up to it. I think I've always sometimes got to remind myself that games can just be a bit light. I don't have to have a ridiculously heavy thinker every time I play a game, and I can enjoy a light game. And sometimes a game like this comes along and just reminds me a little bit of that. So yeah, it's quite good.
It's one of those games that's sort of taken over BGA a little bit alongside. I've been whilst you've been talking about this, I've been trying to find the game that I was thinking of. Where you're placing down your tiles or your cards, and you go left to right, but then you score right to left.
Yes. What is that game called? Oh, you caught me. That game. Oh, goodness me.
Yep.
I can tell you probably quite quickly. Maybe. Far Away.
Far Away. Yes, thank you. It's
Far Away.
one of those games that sort of took over the internet, and I played it, and I was kind of like, eh. To the degree that I had completely forgotten this game, even though we played it like literally 2 weeks ago, I'd completely forgotten everything about Castle Combo. It just had not sunk in at all. So maybe I just need to give it another go. But I'm also trying this year to play more games that I want to play rather than games I feel like I
want to play.
rather than games that I feel like I have to play. Like I think Harmonies was one, Far Away was another one, Forest Shuffle was another.
Yeah,
just kind of like
I was a bit Forest Shuffle on a bit. Yeah, I agree with you. This is what it's like. For some reason, Castle Combo has kind of stuck with me a little bit.
yeah, and that's fine if it sticks with it. It's fine. Like I'm not going to throw and invest my time into like playing a game multiple times. I'm kind of like about. But one game that I am quite happy to throw quite a lot of time into is Fortress of Ravenshire. So this game is one that I did play with Dom, Tom, and Laura. So this is a heavier game. This is a game where you are blacksmiths in this guild of Ravenshire. They need a new forge master because the forge master has disappeared. That is the description. They have just disappeared. They haven't died. Sure. They have just gone somewhere mysteriously. And over 4 seasons, you are basically gathering resources, fulfilling contracts, recruiting different guild members, and using these dice that you've got. So the mechanism in the placement, which the designer, we played this on stream actually a long time ago whilst it was on Kickstarter, Sam Stockton was saying that a lot of his inspiration for the mechanism behind this is Raiders of the North Sea. Which is a game where you place a meeple down, you do the action, and then you take another meeple off and you do that action again. Or you do a different action depending on which one it pulls up, you're not doing the same one. But in this, you're placing different coloured dice, and the value of the die and the colour of the die can impact the strength of, or rather, the value of the die impacts the strength of the action that you do. The colour of the die makes a difference into what you then do with it afterwards, because you'll put the die down, draw a die back, and then you'll put it into your end of season fixtures boards. So you're then using it to do some extra actions. You're going, okay, so I need to do this to convert charcoal and steel or into steel, sort of thing. So you're just doing those little conversations. And it just works with the guilds because you're then triggering different guild actions that give you different resources and just trying to fulfill these different contracts. And it's a really interesting game to play because you kind of go, okay, each of the mechanisms individually aren't complicated, but how it then comes together into the puzzle and going, okay, well, I need to get this, which means I need to get this number placed down here, but I can't take that number because that number doesn't exist on the board, so I have to place the number. But then I want to be able to take this color back. So how can I make those actions work together so that I get what I want as different ways as possible? And you've got upgradable sections of your board, like in Taverns of Titanfall, we can just sort of upgrade different sections so they become more efficient. It's a really, really interesting puzzle. I'm really glad that it's now shipped and it was available. I picked it up pre-Christmas. It's a massive box for some reason. Like all the different bits in it are very, very chunky.
I mean, that's sometimes nice.
Yeah, it's nice. It's everything fits snugly inside the box. It's just a really big box. So yeah, I think it's a game that you would enjoy just because the mechanisms are very much the sort of thing you do. Like engine building, it's good fun. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. It sort of looks and sounds a bit like another game, but I cannot for the life of me again remember what that game's called. So I'm gonna just forget about it.
It's kind of like a combination of like Taverns of Titanfall, Raiders of the North Sea, Everdell, that kind of thing, because it's got these anthropomorphic animals and these contracts and that sort of thing. So yeah, maybe it'll come to you.
I'm never going to find this game. Yeah, it'll come to. I'll drop it in the comments on the video if I remember, and everyone will be like, "Oh yeah, that's the one." Anyway, right, cool. Hey, right, the Ross game, and it's not the one you think it is. It's not Tapestry. It's not Tapestry. No, it's not. It's no. The game is Guild of Merchant Explorers.
Of course.
So I've probably talked about this game a million times already, so I'm going to keep it very light. Bunch of terrain cards. You flip a card over. Based on the card, you put down some cubes. You're exploring out this map. You're trying to score some points by exploring towers or putting down villages or connecting cities to create trade routes. Yada 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 yada. There's some treasures you can do. I'm binging on BGA is the main reason why it's up there for January, right? Because it's just come out on BGA, or it's in beta at the moment on BGA. I'm just like, it's just such a, it's just so good. It's just so, I just really, really enjoy it. There's a bit more flexibility in it. So it's not always the same thing. Because I'm playing it so much now, I'm seeing some of the cards that I've not seen before, and and I feel like I've got a bit more of an opportunity to maybe pursue some slightly different strategies that I normally wouldn't do, because I'd be like, I'm playing it physically, I need to try and win. Whereas when I'm playing BGA, I tend to be a bit more like, I can just try do this quirky thing that I've not really done before.
Yeah.
Like one of the power cards is you can explore off villages that you've discovered previously, and it's not really that strong. And I've always thought that. But actually, I've played it in a couple of games now because I've had the opportunity, because I can kind of binge the games out a little bit. To then be like, yeah, it's exactly what I thought. It's not, or it's very circumstantial. That's probably a better way of putting it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just so good. Really enjoy it. Just really, really enjoy it. And it's up there. It's like my second favourite game or something like that.
So, certainly top 4, top 5, I think. For you, I can't remember where it was.
Yeah.
And
it still is.
Yeah, I think Guild of Merchant Explorers was one that I hit hard when I first played it. Laura did not enjoy it, so I sold it to you because it's like, who am I going to play with? I'm going to play with you. And every time I've played it physically, I've kind of gone a bit more, I've kind of cooled on it a bit more for some reason. I'm not entirely certain why that is. It might just be
It's because you're bad at it. That's the.
I mean, wow.
I don't actually know what the win rate is on that game.
I mean, you have got a slightly higher win rate on it, but I think it's never been.
Played it way more.
You have played it a lot more. It's also never been dominant, like in our old Tapestry games where you would get significantly higher scores than I would. Yeah. It's never been more than like 15 maybe. Like in certain aspects.
This is part of it. I think it's really good because I think it is always a really tight game. I think like that the winning score being around like, I don't know, 150 to 170 or something like that typically.
Yeah.
People are going to be scoring between 130 and 180. And so you always know that it's going to be like every decision you were trying to squeeze all the points out is important. So yeah.
I think one of the things that does bug me is the terrain card that comes up. You go, okay, I need this terrain card to come up so that I can do this next thing,
and it never will.
And then a different one comes up, and you go, well, I now can't do, like, I've literally had a couple of situations where I've had
Yeah.
a terrain card come up and it's just like I physically cannot play, and that's annoying. It's part of the game, I get that,
Yeah.
but it's just annoying when it happens. You're just like, well,
Yeah.
it's not even like
The,
in Kingdom Builder where that if that comes up and you can't play into a terrain because you're not
then
big enough to
you
play
just
adjacent, you just go
launch yourself
somewhere
somewhere
else. It doesn't have that option, so
Yeah.
it's a bit of a shame on that
If it were
regard.
a kind of game, you could flip like 2 terrain cards over, then maybe like put one of them back or something like that. I don't really know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Well,
it's part of the
it's part of the
part of its forward planning, I guess.
It is a little bit. Sticking with AEG actually, because my last game is another
Nice.
AEG
We are
game.
nailing it today on
Yeah.
these segues.
You're doing so well. This one is a game that I've played a lot. It's a game that I use to prepare words. I'm getting hungry. It's lunchtime. It's a game that I use to prepare for my honeymoon, and this is Let's Go to Japan. So, like Ross, I've talked about this game a fair chunk because it's a game that I really, really enjoy. It was in my top 10. I think it was 8 when we did it last. It's one of the best games that was introduced to me last year, and it is a game where you are basically drafting cards, playing them down into different areas. So you're trying to plan a trip between Kyoto and Tokyo. You're going to put down different cards into different days that match up with different particular elements, like food or conversations or nature and that sort of thing. You're trying to match it down so that you can get those.
I'm trying to remember what they were like.
Culture is one of them. And just general good vibes, like cheap or enjoyable, like sort of thing. And you're going to try and score those different cards because each card has got a points value, it's got different icons that it gives, and then at the bottom it's got a scoring condition that if you meet that condition, by the time that you come to score that card, you will score bonus points for one thing or another. If you match multiple symbols of the same type, you'll get a benefit of some description, which you can choose from one of 3 if you've got all 3 symbols. If you've only got one, you would get a little bump, a little goodness bump. But it's one of those games that is endlessly enjoyable because you've got all the different artwork on the cards, the different elements that make up this actual trip. You've got the logistics of planning of travelling to and from Tokyo and Kyoto, which you can do on the bullet train in about an hour and a half, which is kind of interesting to imagine that you technically could bounce to and from Kyoto and Tokyo within a day.
Yeah.
It's not fun to do, but you can do it. And you've got all these different little elements that you can read about. You can go to the Hachiko statue in Shibuya. You can go to an anime and a board game store in in Kyoto. And there's now little expansions that have been added onto Board Game Arena, which is why I've been playing it predominantly at the moment, which gives you that little asynchronous power, which is nice.
Yeah.
It just adds a little bit of extra replayability.
It does. Yeah.
And in the Kickstarter, there was the 7th day passport kind of thing in there, so you get another little expansion in there that gives you another day. It's just a good game. It's a good little fun game that's over 13 rounds. It's pretty quick. It's just drafting cards, passing the cards on to the next person, putting them down. You've got options that if the cards aren't what you want, you can just go, I'm going to take a walk. You can discard a card forever, take one from the top of either deck, tuck it in, and then you can flip it over later and see if it happens to work out for you. There's always a benefit for it. If you tuck it in higher up in the location, so you decide you're doing it earlier in the day, you're not going to score the bottom thing, but you're going to get more, potentially more points from it. And you get a choice. You can go, I'm either going to go for a walk, and I've come across this thing. I'm just going to walk past it. I'm going to keep doing the walk, or I'm going to go off and I'm going to enjoy this mochi festival, as an example. So, Let's Go to Japan is a good fun game. I know you've played it a few times with me.
Yes.
I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I was a bit like, I was a bit like, it's all right, and I think I enjoy playing it. It's a game where I wouldn't suggest it, I guess, is kind of what I'm saying. If someone says to me, hey, do you want to play? I'd be like, yeah, sure, this is great. I'm going to have a fun time and I'm going to enjoy it. But like, if it was just on a pile of games that I was picking the games, I don't know why I probably wouldn't pick it. I do really like the drafting stuff in this. There's quite a lot of... It could get quite monotonous if you like. Literally like, pick a card, pass the cards. There's quite nice that it's like, this round you pick 2, then you discard 2, or you're passing 2, or you're drawing an extra one in. And there's quite... Like I say, there's quite a lot of flexibility in it that you feel like you're never trapped with what you're doing, really. And if you're sensible about it and you grab some of those like research tokens and stuff. You can make sure you're cycling the cards to kind of get the stuff that you're looking for. So yeah, it's really good, and I think it works particularly nicely because it's Japan, and it kind of works with that kind of two city aspect with all the different stuff that you're doing in there, and each of the cards is a bit unique, and it kind of makes sense. The thing that you're doing on the card is the stuff that it gives you, basically.
Yeah, it's definitely set up by the way that the title is written, that it's intended to be a potential let's go series.
I don't know how well it would work, if I'm honest. It
Yeah.
might be good, but I would be a bit nervous. I don't know.
You'd
Usually
almost
let's go UK and it's London and Edinburgh or something like that.
Yeah,
I don't know,
it would be the sort of thing that you would have instead of the train network that you have. It's probably going to be internal flights. So like you could do the USA, California, and New York sort of thing, and maybe that's an option on it. But who knows? We'll see what happens. Anyway, those are the games that we have been playing throughout January, along with many others that we have played. But those are just the ones that we have hyped up that we really enjoy. Let us know in the comments below what sort of games you have been playing and which ones you've enjoyed. And yeah, we'll see you again next month. Thanks everyone. Talk to you soon. Bye.